Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday 10 with CadChica Sports. I am Sunny Cadwallader, your host, better known as CadChica. Tuesday 10 is a quick 10-minute chat with leaders and up-and-comers in the world of sports, from media broadcasting, business marketing, social media, and more. Now, those of you who have been a part of my show know that the majority of my guests have come through connections I have made through Twitter. But today, my guest comes to us from a connection I made right here on Google+. Please welcome in my guest, John Martin. Hey, John, how are you?
Hi, Sunny. Thanks for having me on today.
Well, yeah, we definitely connected on Google+, through communities, but why don't you let everybody know a little bit more about yourself?
Okay, I'm John Martin out in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm a University of Kentucky graduate. In my professional life, I'm a commercial real estate agent serving the Valley and the state, but I also like sports, and I'm a sports junkie, and Google Plus communities has been a way for me to whet that appetite.
Whet that appetite indeed, and everybody, you'll find out more about that. Sports, most of the conversation takes place on Twitter, so I'm curious, what prompted you to get onto Google Plus?
Well, I first started Google Plus, Sunny. I did it through Hangouts. I was using that to stay in touch with my family. I have sons that live in different states, and then I migrated to the Google Plus platform. Kind of looked at it to see what kind of business applications I could do with it, but also soon after I started, communities started rolling out. I was very curious about communities. There were some sports communities that had already started up, most notably college football and college basketball, which are my two main passions. And Jesse Dillow actually started that. And soon after I joined, he invited Dan DeWitt and I to moderate those communities, and we've been building on it ever since.
Now, so you've been quite involved not just with communities, but with Hangouts as well. What kind of changes have you seen or growth have you seen when it comes to sports?
Well, the sports, it's really blossoming. It started out real fragmented. Everybody was trying to figure it out, and they were starting their own communities and all that. But after a while, especially because we did a broad category like college basketball and college football, that became a natural feeder for people. And then once the season started, if they were going to be on Google Plus, it's a Saturday, it soon became the place to be. And we tried different things. Like we had hangout chats that were going on during a football game, and we would just sit and have conversations with each other. And pretty soon the relationship started building, and then the community started getting more robust.
So what's been, because you're part of 4 different communities, is that right? Sports communities?
Yes, college football, college basketball, golf, and the Big Blue Nation community that devote to University of Kentucky.
Yeah, we'll get into Kentucky talk here in a minute. But what would you say has been part of the keys to building a robust, solid community for those who might be interested, not just in sports communities, but communities in general, to those who might be interested in building their own?
Well, I think you need to be flexible. I know a lot of people start communities and they recommend setting guidelines and setting rules, and yeah, to a point that makes sense. All we've tried to do, or at least from a personal standpoint, I've always wanted to make it, when you're dealing with college sports, like college, say football, for example, it's going to be male dominated, and you got to realize that. So, but my philosophy is if I can make it where a female is comfortable in there, or a high school student is comfortable in there, then I think it'll be successful. The other component is just let those members be creative, and with the plus ones and the comments, you're really voting on what content you like in there. And for example, early on, and it still happens today, people like to try to link dump and go link back to their story on Rant Sports or somewhere like that. I can tell you within our community they don't get a whole lot of attention because it's just a link. But if you come up with something original and ask people to comment on it, the comments will fly in that community.
Yeah. Now let's switch gears a little bit, because I told you I would bring up Kentucky,
okay.
the other Wildcat team, because my team is the Arizona Wildcats. Going into this past season, Kentucky Wildcats were picked to win the SEC, obviously. But What were your expectations? I mean, they made it all the way to the championship game, lost to UConn, but what were your expectations for the Wildcats going into the season?
Well, my expectations as far as the end result goes was pretty close. I thought they had a chance in time to be a championship quality team. I didn't buy into the 40-0 hype that some people did. These were freshmen after all, and it was going to take time for them to develop. And a couple of the key players, the Harrison twins, had a late semester in their senior year of high school, so they did not arrive on campus until when the semester started, so they didn't get to practice with the team. James Young had a similar situation, so it was really sunny. Towards the end of the season, when they finally started coming together, the SEC championship, you finally started seeing that Kentucky might have potential here, and then they played very well in the tournament. But it just goes to show, you don't put too much expectations on freshmen. Let them develop over time, and let's hope they'll be there at the end.
Well, speaking of freshmen, it seems like John Calipari, he's always recruiting top flight athletes, top recruiting classes, another top 5 recruiting class this next year. There's always constant turnover with players leaving, players coming in. How do you see this next top 5 recruiting class fitting in? You have Randall and Young, who have left early for the NBA draft. They have to replace those 2 players. Where do you see those 2 going in the NBA draft? I mean, it's just it always seems like there's something new and something great happening with Kentucky basketball.
Well, the good news this year is that they actually have people who came back who opted not to go into NBA. For the first time, Coach Calipari has some leadership. And when I say leadership, we're talking about sophomores here, okay, and a few juniors. Forget about seniors. That doesn't happen down there. But he does have some people who have played and got minutes and can show these freshmen coming in what it takes to prepare for practice and prepare for the games. The one unknown, you mentioned Julius Randle and James Young leaving. That's a good chunk of their scoring. Those were the 2 leading scorers this year. And who's going to step in and fill that void? Obviously, Aaron Harrison and Andrew Harrison, they'll be double-digit scorers. But Alex Poythress, in my opinion, who is a junior, has to have a stellar season next year for Kentucky to make a big run in the NCAA tournament.
Now, where do you see Randall and Young falling in the upcoming NBA draft? Because that's just here in a couple of weeks.
Right. The NBA draft, I think you can divide it up into components. The first 3 picks is going to be something between Joel Embiid, Andrew Wiggins, and Jabari Parker. The 4 slot will probably be Dante Exum. And then you get into 5 through 8. Somewhere Julius Randle will be in that mix. James Young, look for him to be round 11 through 14. I'm hoping he goes 14 because that's what the Phoenix Suns are picking. And now I'll take James Young any day.
You'll help him out, help him get around the Valley of the Sun, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't ask about my Arizona teams. Aaron Gordon, Nick Johnson from the Wildcats, Jahi Carson, Jordan Baczynski from Arizona State. You hear all of the talk down there as far as the Wildcats and Sun Devils go. What are you hearing about those guys?
Well, Aaron Gordon is the most sure one of the bunch. He'll be in that 5 to 8 mix that I told you about. It's going to be he, Julius Randle, and Noah Vonleh from Indiana, and Marcus Smart from Oklahoma State. Those are 4 guys that I don't know who's going to go ahead of who, but just look for those 4 guys to come off the board in the 5 through 8 slot. When you talk about Jahi Carson and Nick Johnson, I'm looking at late first round for those. Maybe they might slip in the second round, but late first round. Baczynski, I don't know. I have heard a lot of things, but I expect him to be a second round pick.
Well, all right. Thanks. See, the 10-minute flies by. There were no questions for me, John. As much as you tried to put it on the events page to take over my show and make it interviewing the host, that's not going to happen. Our 10 minutes is up. Thanks for joining me tonight. Why don't you let everybody know how they can connect with you?
Okay, you can connect with me through Google Plus is a good place. John Martin AZ is my Google Plus handle. Twitter, John M. Martin. But I would love to see you sports fans in our college football community, which has over 20,000 members. Our college basketball community has over 7,500 members. They're very lively. They're a lot of fun, and we hope to see you and join in the fun.
Definitely, I am a part of two of the communities because I'm not a Kentucky Wildcat fan and I'm not a golf person. So, but college football, college basketball, I will definitely be on Google Plus these next 2 seasons. Thanks again to John for joining me. Connect with me here on Google Plus, Sunny Cadwallader, at CadChica on Twitter and Instagram. And also be sure to tune in next week when I will be joined by Katie Cavender from the Mountain West Conference. We'll be talking about some of the great things that they did in the conference this past season and what might be coming up for them this next season. And also tune in tomorrow night right here on Google Plus when I will be co-hosting the First and 60 show. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.